Hi all, I'm Professor Tina Good, and this mini video will be discussing the memoir as a genre. We will be talking about giving it a definition, what are some of the rules of a genre, what are some subcategories of a genre, and possibly what are some of the purposes for the genre. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can review the PowerPoint that I have created for this video. Okay, so memoir. So, memoir, as you might imagine, also gets overlapped a great deal with the genre called autobiography. And certainly there is a great deal of overlap. Um, like autobiography, both genres are generally about the author's life, right? So they are writing about themselves and it is told from the author's perspective. Usually it is written or told in first person. But there are some subtle differences. First, the autobiography is generally about a person's entire life, right? From childhood to wherever they are now. Usually, when you write an autobiography, you're a little bit, a little bit older, but nowadays it doesn't really mean old as much as you've gone through a lot of experiences in your life, and now you're sitting down to write about that life. The autobiography, while it is subjective, it is written from the author's perspective, it still is generally considered to be a factual accounting of a person's life. In other words, maybe not exactly the same as a history, but that it can be verified, it can be proven to be true or not true. And so it is looked at to be kind of this factual reaccounting of a person's life. The autobiography generally narrates a story of the person's challenges in life and what they had to do to overcome those challenges. Some examples that you might be aware of is the autobiography of Malcolm X by Malcolm X, the Angela's Ashes. Maybe you haven't heard of that. That was a very popular autobiography a few years ago by Frank McCourt. The Long Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela, and perhaps the most current one, Becoming by Michelle Obama. Memoir, on the other hand, it generally focuses much more than autobiography on a pivotal moment in someone's life rather than giving the whole span of childhood to date. Instead, it talks about a moment where, something happened in the author's life and it was a life-changing moment. A memoir focuses more on the feelings of the author, the motivations of the author, the biases, the premises, these kinds of things of the author, rather than giving, a more external account. It's focusing more on the internal thoughts of the author. And while it is still considered, to be factual, much of the memoir doesn't have the same sort of burden of proof, if you will, as the autobiography, because it focuses more on memories, right? The memories of the event, the feelings of the event, and the effects of the event on the author's life, right? So a lot of those things cannot be verified, right? They draw on sort of the internal life of the author. Categories of memoir. Now, this is taken from an article. I did not create these categories. The citation is on this slide, but I do think it is a good way to consider categories of memoir when we're thinking about it. So first of all, there is the transformation memoir, which we're probably thinking about most in this class, right? But it's the author's reflection of like a great challenge that they had in their life. So maybe they endured an accident, or maybe they, had some kind of disease, or maybe, they had to overcome some sort of family or friend event, some sort of great challenge. Maybe they're in sports, and they got into the Olympics, and what it meant to do that. Some kind of great challenge that they had to endure. And most often, these types of memoir talk about redemption, claiming, how they were able to overcome this and redeem themselves. Perhaps they made a great error in judgment, and yet, they are able to redeem themselves, or maybe not. The themes of redemption could also be that they are not redeemed, that they have been unable to forgive themselves for this. So while redemption is a premise in it, it doesn't mean necessarily that the author is redeemed by the end. Although I will say that, my experience of this kind of memoir is usually there is, at least by the end, hope for redemption. And then there's the confessional memoir, right? And these are the ones that you probably see a lot of in the press. People like to read these because they're where they reveal some kind of secret, a painful secret, a damaging secret. Um, and so there's a secret in somebody's life, and they use the page to reveal this secret. This secret is usually affected them in some way. Just the event itself of the secret, keeping the secret, and the aftermath of the secret. And so this confessional memoir usually, focuses on that. And again, oftentimes there's some kind of redemption issue with this, some sort of cathartic moment for this. And sometimes it's just, just to get it off your chest. And hope that your audience will be kind. But sometimes it really doesn't have much to do with the audience. Um, the professional or celebrity memoir, we're very familiar with these. These are our stars. These are our politicians. And these memoirs kind of look at how they rose to their success, or how they rose to their fame. Sometimes the impact of achieving this success, or the impact of achieving this fame, the cost of the fame, what they've done with that fame or success. And, so we know a lot of these. Malcolm X, was an autobiography, but it would be along those lines. A lot of memoirs come out, like Britney Spears just has one out right now. Um, um, there were others that came out. Diane Keaton had one. Rob Lowe had one. So, these kind of make the press a lot when we think about how did they rise to fame, and what was the cost of that. Travel memoirs have become very very pervasive in the 21st century, and even a little bit in the late 20th century. And that's where the author reflects on some journey that they have taken, and this journey has had some kind of life-changing event for them, a life-changing awareness for them. Perhaps one of the most famous right now is Wild, where the author hiked the Pacific Crest. Another one that was very influential was the memoir Eat, Pray, Love. Again, it sort of shows their journey, but also their reflections as they're going through this journey, and how it changes their lives. All of the memoirs, however, do focus around this idea of an epiphany, right? And that is that because of this experience that's being described, they have come to a sudden realization, a sudden awareness. And it was unexpected that something happened, and suddenly there is what we call like this aha moment, or the light bulb goes off. Sometimes we think of it that way, and we weren't necessarily looking for it, but it happened. And that moment is life defining. That moment in some way changes the way that we think or do things. Um, it doesn't just happen usually without some kind of thought. You know, you might be pondering something and all of a sudden it makes sense, but it's usually still unexpected. It isn't like you're searching for the answer to something and there you find it through research and through, but often it is through some kind of reflection or pondering of something that has happened, and all of a sudden you go, aha, and there is this realization that maybe the way you've been thinking about something has been flawed, incomplete, or maybe it's a completely new idea that you had not considered before. An epiphany can be the result of, a traumatic event, like we talked about, that transformational, like big life event, that can cause you to rethink or come to this realization. But it can also be a very mundane event. Driving in a car and a song comes on, and you've heard the song many times before, but for some reason in that moment, you connect to that song in a different way, and suddenly you have this epiphany, this realization about something in your life, or something that you're doing in your life, or something that you've been thinking. Um, it can be a sunset. It can be, petting your dog, looking at your child, so it doesn't have to be this dramatic moment. It could be just, something that you do every day, but suddenly something about it makes you think about something differently. You're looking into your dog's eyes in a different way, and suddenly some realization comes to you. You're observing nature in some way, and something comes to you in a different way. So both things can cause an epiphany. Um, but the idea here is that because of the epiphany, that you've had this realization that you did not have before, and it is going to change the way that you think or do things. And the idea with epiphany is that hopefully your epiphany in the memoir can help your readers also come to their own epiphanies, perhaps related to your epiphany. So the memoir is the purpose of it is generally about human connection. Often people writing the memoirs experience what we call a catharsis, that in so doing, whether it's writing through their transformational moment, or their the writing actually brings on the epiphany, but there's something that brings out this moment where you've been repressing some emotions, whether it's grief, whether it's extreme joy, whether it's anger, something that you've repressed, right? Maybe because it was just too big for you to manage, and you chose to write through it, and through writing through it, you are able to release that emotion, and in so doing, get some kind of relief from whatever it is that you may have been experiencing or suffering. The memoir then seeks to make a human connection with readers, right? So here's my story, just like we all tell stories about ourselves in order to connect with others. The memoir seeks to do that very same thing, but with the hope, I think, that it will tap into empathy and compassion of our readers, and perhaps even expand their capacity for empathy and compassion, because you have now shared an experience that perhaps they hadn't thought about like that before, right? And it could trigger their own epiphany, right? So that's one of the purposes, I think, of memoir. And then finally, this idea that as humans, we need connection with each other, and that that just by writing this memoir and by having somebody read this memoir, like if they've experienced something similar to what you've experienced in your memoir, that that they get this sense like, okay, but I'm not alone, right? We are not alone. And because we are not alone, right? That there is often these avenues of hope that come out. Even if the memoir does not necessarily end in a hopeful way. Sometimes, you know, life happens and it doesn't go the way that we hope that it will go. But that in the telling of the story itself, that it creates some kind of hope, right? For the writer as well as for the readers. So I hope that this mini video helps you begin to understand the purpose of the memoir and what the memoir is a little bit more, particularly as you may be thinking about writing your own memoir. Okay, that's it for today. Have a great day.